Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapter 89. Audio source: WuShoWorldAudiobook.com. The Mid-Autumn Festival. Battling lanterns on Moon Watch Eve. Clang. Sparks flew. The blade penetrated deep into the stone floor. And Xie Lian, both his hands gripping the sword, bowed his head and rested his forehead on the hilt, his teeth gritted so hard they might grind to powder in his mouth. Useless trash. Qi Rong laughed out loud. What useless trash? I knew you wouldn't dare to kill me. No matter how much I ridicule you, no matter how I drag you through the mud, as long as I have a knife on someone else's throat, you can't do anything to me. You useless coward, for what do you need to live for, a god like you? However, Xie Lian had already completely calmed down. He looked up, his eyes cold. Don't be too happy too soon. I can't do anything to you, but there will naturally be someone who can. Qi Rong humphed. Are you thinking of hugging Jun Wu's legs to beg him to help you out again? Dream on. Did he care then? And you still shamelessly follow his lead. Are you really that stupid? Xie Lian peeled off that set of stately, glamorous, god-pleasing costume off of Qi Rong, called forth Rui, bound him and threw him aside. You better keep your mouth shut. I'm not afraid of you. You've got nothing on me. Qi Rong retorted. Then are you afraid of Hua Cheng? Xie Lian said. Qi Rong's smile froze for an instant, and in that instant, Xie Lian said lightly, just to give you a heads up, if one of these days I get into a bad mood, maybe I just might hand you over to Hua Cheng, and have him think of a way to deal with you. So you watch yourself, hear me? Hearing this, Qi Rong couldn't laugh anymore. He said, terrified, what the fuck, you're vicious. I can't believe you'd come up with something like that. Why not just hand me over to Lang Qianshu? Xie Lian knelt on the ground and used his hands to pick up small, coarse granules from the ground and from under the coffin one by one. Truthfully, he wouldn't be handing Qi Rong to the heavenly court for the time being. The reason being Lang Qianshu. If he handed Qi Rong over and Lang Qianshu learned of Qi Rong's whereabouts, he would charge immediately with his sword to kill him. Should he be killed? A headache. If killed, then what's next? Another headache. Thus, it wasn't wise to hand Qi Rong over to the heavenly court at the moment. All things considered, requesting for Hua Cheng's help seemed like a pretty good idea. But really, he was only using Hua Cheng's name to scare Qi Rong a little bit. After all, he already troubled Hua Cheng too many times, and every time something happened he'd think of Hua Cheng first. It'd almost feel like he was being overly familiar. Just using his name to scare Qi Rong made Xie Lian feel rather embarrassed. Qi Rong turned his head and spat some spit laced with blood at a different direction, and that child reached out pathetically to pat his forehead. Dad, are you okay? Does it hurt? Qi Rong seemed to really enjoy this game of father and son, and responded derisively. My good son. Daddy is okay. Ha! The rims around Xie Lian's eyes were red as he picked at those granules and he placed them with the utmost care onto the god-pleasing costume. That child quietly crawled over and helped Xie Lian pick too. Xie Lian saw those little hands and looked up at him, and that child said in a small voice, Xie, won't you stop beating my dad up? Let us go. I won't steal from you again. Xie Lian's heart tightened and he forced the feeling away. What's your name, little one? My name is Guz, that child replied. Xie Lian had finished collecting all the ashes and wrapped them in layers of that costume, tying it up neatly before placing the bundle within the coffin anew, closing the cover. He then slowly replied, Guz, the one over there is not your dad, but someone else. He's been possessed. He's currently a bad guy. The child couldn't comprehend what he said and looked confused. Someone else? No, I recognize him. He's my dad. Qi Rong commended. Not bad, not bad. I've picked up a cheap son. What a great value. Ha, oof. Xie Lian kicked him. Guz was still young and had always lived dependent on his father, so he was quite attached to the body Qi had possessed, refusing to leave it alone. Xie Lian couldn't think of a way to take care of him for the moment, so he carried the sword Feng Xin on his back, kowtowed solemnly towards the two coffins thrice, then with Qi hung from his left hand and Guz under his right arm, he left Mount Taikang, returning speedily back to Puqi village, having left for many days. By the time they made it back, it was deep into the night, and the doors to the Puqi shrine were wide open, clouds of incense rolling out, and upon the altar the incense burner were filled to the brim with incense sticks, and the table itself was covered with offerings. Xie Lian entered, swept a look, and grabbed 2 meat buns from the altar, passing one to Guz, and rudely stuffing the other into Qi mouth. That body was live after all, and until Xie Lian figured out how to pull Qi from that man, he still needs sustenance. Qi spat out that meat bun and tasted how bad it tasted, and yelled as if a little worried. "I say, you won't actually hand me over to Hua Cheng, will you?" Xie Lian sneered. "Are you scared?" He didn't have time for his nonsense, and turned around to rummage throughout his pickle jars on the ground. Qi was petulant. "Me? Scared? You should be the one scared. As a heavenly official, you'd dare get so chummy with us Supreme. You." As he talked, his eyes suddenly focused and locked onto something. Turns out, when Xie Lian bent down, something slipped out of the front of his robes. It was a crystal-clear ring. That was what Qi was staring at. Xie Lian didn't notice his gaze, but Qi face grew suspicious behind him. After a while, he spoke up. "Cousin Crown Prince, what's that thing on your chest?" Xie Lian was going to keep ignoring him, but what Qi brought up was something he himself sort of minded, so he turned around, his finger hooking onto the thin silver chain. "This? Do you know what it is? Bring it here, let me see and I'll tell you." Qi beckoned. But Xie Lian said, "If you know, then say it. If you don't, then shut up." Qi grumbled bitterly. "You're always so nasty to people who are close to you. If you're so amazing, why don't you go show off how cool you are to outsiders?" Xie Lian stuffed the silver chain back into the inner layers of his robe, pressing it against his skin and straightened it. "If you're so amazing, keep talking. Every word you say I will keep count, and with every count you'd be one step closer to Hua Cheng's blade." Somehow, without him realizing, he'd gotten used to using Hua Cheng's name. Qi sneered. "Don't you use him to scare me. Maybe one of these days you'd be the one dead under someone's blade. Didn't you want to know what that was? I, who make part of the 4 Supremes, shall tell you, that's a cursed accessory, an object of misfortune. Hurry and throw it out. I can't believe you'd keep it on you. Think you'd been living for too long?" Hearing this, Xie Lian straightened up instantly. "Is that true?" "Duh," Qi said. "I'm telling you, whoever gave that to you, man or demon, must not have good intentions." "Oh," Xie Lian squatted down again. "What do you mean, oh?" Qi cried. Xie Lian didn't bother turning to face him and said flatly, "Oh, just means it must be a miracle for anyone to believe you. I choose to believe in the person who gave this to me. I've decided to keep wearing it on my person." Xie Lian had always been gentle and courteous to others, but to Qi he was exceptionally cold. Qi was madly furious, cussing nonstop, and Xie Lian only pretended to have heard nothing. He realized that he couldn't find the pot that contained Banyu no matter how much he looked, and thought, did the Wind Master perhaps already come by and took her away? As he listened to Qi he suddenly felt something off. Strange. Qi was so obviously terrified of Hua Cheng, so why was he trying to provoke him nonstop, as if he was intentionally trying to distract him? Realizing this, Xie Lian suddenly attacked, whipping around to glare at Qi and sure enough he caught his eyes avert away for an instant, looking mighty suspicious. Xie Lian's gut instinct made him look up. He raised his head, and saw on the beams that weren't very high up, a black-clothed man who was back pressed against the ceiling, adhered above, just like a giant bat. Xie Lian immediately pulled out Fang Xin and hurled the sword up. That man was pressed onto the beam, and to dodge the attack, he flipped around and fell down. Jiu Zi was so terrified his meat bun fell to the ground, and he wailed. Just before Qi Rong could scream, Tu Ruwei sealed his mouth, dragged him to a corner and bound him. Xie Lian had thought it was one of Qi Rong's planted lackeys at first, yet after a few quick parries, he noticed this man was fast and aggressive, oddly familiar. He could say with absolute certainty that by Qi Rong's competence, he wouldn't have the power to subdue such a subject. Then he saw there was something held in that man's other arm, and upon a closer look, it was a black pot, and that pot was the very one that contained Ban Yu. The Windmaster hadn't taken Ban Yu away? Xie Lian instantly remembered who this was, and blurted out, "Little General Pei." Turns out Little General Pei had come to steal Ban Yu away, but unexpectedly bumped into the Xie Lian who'd just returned, and could only hide above on the wooden beam. Because Qi Rong was bound by Wei, lying on the ground, he immediately saw the Pei Su who was hiding above. He didn't know who that was, and had only thought if it was anything harmful to Xie Lian, it must be beneficial to him. He was afraid Xie Lian would notice someone was lurking above and purposely kept trying to distract him with noise, but who knew Xie Lian still noticed. Xie Lian carried 2 cursed shackles and Pei Su was in exile. Neither of the two had spiritual power, so they could only fight barehanded. Xie Lian had fought through his 800 years with nothing but his fists, so how could Pei Su possibly compete? It didn't take many rounds before Xie Lian subdued him. "Give back the pot." Xie Lian only shouted spontaneously, but unexpectedly, Pei Su actually tossed the pickle pot back to him. Startled, Xie Lian thought, was this Little General Pei really that easy? He'd return the pot just by having asked? Usually wouldn't they have to push each other around for a bit longer? Yet at the same time as when Pei Su tossed him the pot, he also warned in a low voice, "Hurry and go." By that tone, it sounded like he was quite anxious. That pot was still in mid-air and Xie Lian was reaching out to catch it when suddenly, it changed course and flew out the window. The next second, they heard another man's voice coming from some distance away. "You've really disappointed me." Pei Su's face dropped. "General." He and Xie Lian rushed out of Puqi Shrine. Sure enough, standing far away on the roof of a house was Pei Ming. He didn't wear his armor, his robes casual, tall and slender, bright like the sun. He was the very image of carefree. That pot leisurely flew next to Pei Ming, then stopped, floating. With a hand relaxed on the hilt of his sword, he spoke to Pei Su who was standing below. "A man looks at the big picture and puts career first. You're meant for great things, but what's going on? You'd mess yourself up for a little girl. Do you take yourself for an immature brat?" Pei Su hung his head low and didn't speak. Pei Ming added, "Did you think it was easy to obtain that position in just 200 years? I even paved the road for you. It's easy to go down, but it ain't easy coming back up. They say it's lonely on the top. However, whenever a god of heaven would descend, they usually like picking high places to stand, since the higher it was, the easier it'd be to watch all below." Xie Lian used to have that bad habit, but of course after he felt that one time, now whenever he stood high up he could feel his leg aching, and that bad habit went away. Yet, the tallest building within the entire Puqi village was the village head's house. And that house was a simple tile-roofed house, so having General Pei stand upon it really was doing him an injustice. However, that wasn't the point. The point was, with just at a glance Xie Lian knew what was going on. Last time, Pei Ming had the intention to push all the blame onto Ban Yu to clear Pei Su, and Xie Lian stopped it. Although in front of Zhan Wu, Pei Ming looked like he gave up on the surface, but obviously he hadn't abandoned the idea. This time, after Xie Lian's crummy business with the gilded banquet got out, He could barely take care of himself and his reputation no doubt crashed. So General Pei probably thought it was mighty time to bring up old affairs, find Pei Su, and bring both him and Banna back up to the heavenly court to appeal for a new trial. Truly relentless. However, Pei Su didn't seem overly willing at the prospect and breathed a sigh. General, let's just forget about this whole affair. Pei Ming looked speechless and exasperated. He must have also been too frustrated to be lecturing Pei Su in front of Xie Lian, and a moment later, he suddenly said, "Well, now I have to see just what kind of amazing girl could make all my hard work go down the drain." He reached out, seeming to plan on shattering the pot. Such a way to open it shouldn't have been a problem, but the problem was Xie Lian didn't know whether if Ban Yu's wounds were healed, and if not and the pot shattered, it'd be bad. Xie Lian's face dropped and leapt to charge. "Don't break it." Unexpectedly, before Pei Ming's hand even touched the thing, the pot went bang and exploded by itself. In that instant, the air was filled with the smell of pickles that could destroy a man. Pei Ming, who stood the closest to the pot, was unfortunately covered with pickles all over, entirely flabbergasted by that pickle shower. Immediately after, the clear, sonorous voice of a woman rang in midair. "General Pei is such an honorable man." A white-robed individual flipped out of that small pot, and at first she was only the size of a fist, but the more she flipped the bigger she became. Xie Lian looked closer, and cried, "Lord Windmaster." The one hidden in the pickle pot wasn't Ban Yu, but Shi Qingshan. She hid in that pot and blew a pot of pickles at Pei Ming, but she herself was still all fluttering white robes, not a spot of stain. She landed steadily, swung her whisk, and proclaimed, "Thank goodness, thank goodness. Good thing I already sent the little lady to someone else beforehand, otherwise, she wouldn't have escaped the long reach of General Pei." Pei Ming had prided himself on his charm. And no matter what, he must keep his composure, yet now he stank of pickles, and even in the face of Shi Qingshan in female form, he couldn't help but feel a little woeful. "Qingshan, why do you have to fight against me like this?" If it was anyone else he probably would have beaten them to a pulp already. But just thinking about who Shi Qingshan's older brother was, he could only pick off the pickles, brush back his hair, and grit his teeth. He shook his head. You better not let me find out just where you sent the little girl, otherwise I will certainly pay a personal visit." The tone of his voice was clear. Whoever dared take Ban Yu in was opposing him, and he would go seek trouble. However, Shi Qingshan clapped. "That's easy. It doesn't matter if I tell you where I sent her, I'd love to see you go visit. Listen well, that little girl is currently staying at the Rainmaster Cave residence on Mount Yulong, right next to the Rainmaster. You dare go." At his words, Pei Ming's face dropped, and actually didn't look as confident as he did before. He schooled his expression and suddenly became serious. He said to the Windmaster, "Qingshan, you're still young, that's why you like to fight for justice over every little thing. Hopefully when you get older, you won't regret the things you're doing now." Done. He leapt off the roof, and his figure disappeared. He actually left in quite a hurry. Xie Lian was feeling a little bewildered, and thought his words contained hidden meaning, so he asked, "Lord Windmaster, what did he mean?" Shi Qingshan, however, replied nonchalantly, "Nothing but empty threats." Pei Su watched Pei Ming's silhouette disappear before coming over to greet the other two. "Lord Windmaster, Your Highness." Shi Qingshan patted his shoulders. "Little General Pei, you knew to come and stop your general this time. Very generous of you. Take good care of yourself down here and reflect properly. If there's a chance I'll speak well of you in the heavenly court, don't you worry." Pei Su was speechless for a moment but still replied, "Then, thank you, my lord. However, I still think you might have misunderstood something. General Pei isn't usually like this, and it was only because of what's happened previously that he's overly worried about me. Besides, you know too that the Rainmaster In the end, Pei Su still felt he spoke too much, shook his head and corded his hands. Farewell. The two of them watched him leave, and Xie Lian spoke up again. Lord Wind Master, the Lord Rain Master you spoke of earlier, was it Rain Master Huang? Shi Qingshan turned back around and replied, that's right. The Rain Master hasn't changed in centuries. What, someone you know? An acquaintance? Xie Lian shook his head and said softly, although I haven't had the honor to meet the Rain Master, I owe a debt and I am profoundly grateful. Shi Qingshan smiled. That's true. Although there aren't many who are acquainted with the Rain Master, but those who are had never spoken a bad word. Oh, except Pei Ming. Is there a dispute between them? Xie Lian asked. Naturally. Those who have hung around the upper court for so long all have some sort of dispute or deceit. Let me tell you, that Rain Master is a shadow in Pei Ming's heart. Shadow? Xie Lian wondered. In his mind, he always thought the Lord Rain Master was just someone who plowed fields. You know Pei Ming, Shi Qingshan said. He's got plenty of descendants. His however many sons are everywhere. Before little General Pei, there used to be another deputy general at Mingguang Palace, and it was also a descendant who was first appointed then ascended. Xie Lian was amazed. That General Pei sure has many talented descendants. Not just anyone could turn ascension into a homeschool lesson. However, Shi Qingshan flashed her fan open and said, he was indeed a talent, but was more or less the same as Pei Ming. Powerful, but also full of bad habits. That deputy official would often stir up trouble on other people's domains. But he had Pei Ming behind him. No one dared say much, until one day, he messed around at the old residence in the Yushi Kingdom. The Lord Rain Master rarely comes out, and only plants fields deep in the mountains, so there's a nickname, Old Farmer of the Deep Mountains, Rain Master Huang. But who knew the moment the Rain Master emerged? That descendant of Pei Ming was beaten to a pulp, got dragged back to the heavens, thrown in front of the Heavenly Emperor and got sentenced to exile. Why does this sound so familiar? Xie Lian thought. Shi Qingshan continued. At first Pei Ming thought, exile? Whatever. He could very well fish him back up in 100 years. But how much can happen in the mortal realm in a century? Every year, every day even, new and impressive talents appear like flashes of light, waves after waves, you can barely keep count. It only took 10 years before all the devotees changed their idol. After 50 years, that heavenly official was completely forgotten. And after 100 years, he could no longer be recalled. The once young heavenly official with a boundless future was thus wasted, no more. It wasn't until little General Pei came around did Pei Ming found a right hand he liked. No wonder General Pei would do everything in his power to fish little General Pei back up. So there was a precedent, and he was afraid little General Pei would go to waste too. Although the method wasn't quite right. Xie Lian mused then sighed. The human world. Shi Qingshan agreed. Yes, staying too long in the mortal realm will always wear down one's spirit and will. The two nodded to themselves. The difference, however, was Xie Lian only nodded subconsciously whereas Shi Qingshan was intentionally nodding in an exaggerated manner. After nodding for a while, Xie Lian suddenly remembered an incredibly important individual and called out. Lang Ying. That child. Too many things happened all at once, the excitement was too great and he had forgotten about that child. Shi Qingshan piped up. Are you talking about that child you brought back from Paradise Manor? The Heavenly Emperor had seen him, and he's currently at my place. I'll bring him down for you when I get the chance. Xie Lian mentally noted, there's still Qirong and another child locked up inside Puchi Shrine. I can't have anyone see them. So he replied, that'd be too much trouble. How about I go up instead? Shi Qingshan nodded in delight. Same difference. Coincidentally, it'd be the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet soon. It's a once-a-year event, you shouldn't miss it. This year my brother will come back too. I'll introduce you then. His tone was full of pride for his own elder brother, and Xie Lian couldn't help but smile, thinking, Mid-Autumn Festival Banquet, huh? Every year for the Mid-Autumn Festival, all of heaven would hold a Mid-Autumn Festival banquet to celebrate and watch the people of the mortal realm as entertainment. Other than that, there was also a very important game during the banquet, a sort of grand finale to the feast, the Battle of the Lanterns. One blessings lantern couldn't be offered by just anyone. What the gods battle over during the Mid-Autumn Festival banquet was the number of those blessings lanterns offered by their devotees each heavenly official would receive from their main temple. Although on everyone's lips all would say, "It's only a game. No need to take it seriously. We're just playing around. No need to mind." But in reality, just how many really didn't care? The majority all secretly held their breaths, hoping this year their devotees would fight for them. If there was really one who didn't fight, it'd only be John Wu, because, obviously, every year the Great Martial Palace stood victorious, and the lanterns even increased year after year. Thus, he was the only heavenly official who truly took this game for a game. As for the other heavenly officials, they didn't fight for first place, only for the second, but even then the competition was fierce. At the peak of Xi'an Palace's prominence, it was also incomparably impressive, standing far ahead of the herd alongside the Great Martial Palace, leaving all the other heavenly officials in the dust. Now, it'd probably look quite sad. Xie Lian didn't even need to guess to know how many of those blessings lanterns he'd get. Definitely not a single one. End chapter.